Greetings, drillers. One more quick video to try and finish up the review packet, talking about the federal budget. Just a few quick items. Number one, what is an entitlement? An entitlement is a program that you get, you are entitled to it if you have paid into it. So, for instance, Social Security, Medicare, if you have paid into it, I think it's something like 40 quarters, that's 10 years, then at the right age, at an age prescribed by Congress, you will begin to receive that entitlement. So Social Security and Medicare are both examples of entitlements. Now, number two, the budget. There's a difference between what we call mandatory spending and discretionary spending. Discretionary spending means every year Congress gets a chance to decide how much to spend. The military is the biggest part of discretionary spending. Congress could spend, $3 trillion or it could spend $1. It's up to Congress every year to decide what the budget's going to be. Now, mandatory spending is like the entitlements. It's based upon the demographics and how many people have paid in and what the formulas are. This is how much Congress has to spend. So when it's mandatory spending, Congress can't control that unless they go in and change the law. Which when they talk about reforming Medicare and talk about reforming Social Security, they have to go in and change the law, like who pays the taxes, how much do you get, when do you start to receive it. That's called mandatory spending. So the entitlements, Social Security and Medicare, are mandatory. And what's happening is our budget is getting more and more blown out of proportion because more and more of our budget is mandatory. We really can't even control it. It's like saying, well, I have to eat cheesecake and I have to drink a lot of beer and I have to make sure I have a double cheeseburger for lunch, but I am going to skim on every other part of my diet. Well, if you do those things, you're not going to be healthy. Well, if the entitlements are out of control when it comes to the amount of money that has to be spent, you're not going to be able to balance the budget because more and more money is on mandatory spending, not discretionary. So the three biggest parts of the federal economy, the two, Social Security and Medicare are two out of the three, and their entitlements. That's mandatory, and then the third one is the military, right? So those are the three biggest. Who writes and reviews the federal budget? Typically, the OMB, an executive office of the president, will write a first draft. They'll hand it over into the Congress, and the Congress, having that power of the purse, will write the budget. They will allocate the resources to all the different departments because they have the power of the purse, and they have the appropriation power and the taxing power. Next question, what is the current state of the federal budget? It's bad. Hundreds of billions of dollars a year we are in deficit. That being said, it was in the about like 1.3 trillion at one point. It's getting better pretty quickly, but it's not really planning on getting better anytime soon. So we've come down out of the Great Recession. We've come down when it comes to the deficit, but at this point we're looking at $300, $400, $500 billion deficits a year as far as the eye can see. Welfare Reform Bill of 1996, very important law. This gave states a lot of power to design their own welfare reform plans. The federal government gave guidelines, like you can't stay on welfare forever. You can only be on it for something like 5 years. But as long as you have these broad principles, you states can do whatever you want to do to design it. So that's always talked about when it comes to federalism. The Defense of Marriage Act, which has now been declared unconstitutional, said that states don't really have to honor the marriage agreements of other states. That was signed in the 1990s. Social Security is income security for the elderly. Medicare is health care for the elderly. Medicaid is health care for people who are in poverty. AFDC, Aids to Family with Dependent Children, we call that welfare, but that's assistance, financial assistance to people who are living in poverty. What is the difference between fiscal and monetary policy? If you don't know that, having taken my econ, I'm not going to tell you. And then finally, what's the difference between a flat tax and a progressive tax? A flat tax says everybody pays the exact same percentage. Okay, Donald Trump pays 17% of his income. The poorest person in America pays 17% of their income. That's a flat tax. Now, a wealthier person will pay more dollars, but the same percentage. A progressive income tax, Teddy Roosevelt favored that, says the more money you make, not only do you pay more, but you pay a higher percentage of it. So Leonardo DiCaprio might pay 40% in federal taxes, but somebody who only makes $10,000 a year would pay 0% in federal income taxes because it's a progressive income tax. Okay, I hope this is helpful. Thanks, everybody.